Well, in 1968, I'd done my doctoral dissertation on distributive justice, which is how I really started to get into it because I had an interest in economics. And then suddenly I became the executive director of the American Philosophical Association. I was 30 years old at the time. And that's just at the point, the inflection point, when the job market began to go south for humanities people, especially philosophers. And it became clear to me that we had to look at new opportunities. And biomedical ethics had just started up about that time. I said, well, why not business ethics? That was a start, and then I began to do, once I left the American Philosophical Association and had developed the center at the University of Delaware, I began to work pretty rigorously in the field of business ethics with some like-minded colleagues from philosophy. Well, I had always had an interest in Immanuel Kant way back to undergraduate days at Bates College. And I went to Rochester. I ended up at the University of Rochester with Louis White Beck was there. And Louis was one of the foremost Kant scholars in the world at that time, and I took seminar with him. But I, despite the fact that Louis didn't think I was a great Kant scholar, he's the one that got me into the job of the American Philosophical Association. I said to myself, well, I'm going to show Louis. I said, I'm going to apply Kantian moral philosophy to business ethics, where, of course, I've kind of established my name. But it's been great fun, and I honestly believe that Kant has, not the whole story, but an important story to tell. Ed Freeman's phrase, a narrative about business ethics and what businesses could do to make the world and business a better place. People say this is Kantianism. Why is it relevant? It's just a white male Western philosophy. Why do anybody take it seriously? Those critics have always come from the West. I have never, in all my years of teaching, had a student from Asia say, oh, this is just, your Western view of all these things. What they've tended to say is, oh, I see the connections between Kant and Buddha, Confucianism, exactly. Oh, I see this connection, or I see that connection. And so, look for commonalities. Don't look for difference. It's come out now in a second edition. The first argument was pretty straightforward, applying Kant to the three formulations of the categorical imperative business. You could criticize a lot of business practices like employment at will using the Kantian framework. And I tried to address some of the challenges that had come up to Kantian business ethics, such as behavioral economics, which I thought couldn't be ignored. And also questions of corporate moral agency, which I had ignored because the question was, could a corporation be an agent? And I had finessed that question because I had no idea how to solve it. Fortunately, when I got to the second edition, there'd been a lot of good work done by people, and I could kind of pick and choose and respond to that. If I were to talk about issues that we need to talk about that we really haven't talked about, it's really, I think, the age of artificial intelligence and robots and what that's going to do to business. There are some estimates that the 45% of the jobs in the United States and around the world will disappear within a generation or so, which is, doesn't affect me, but it's not that far away. It's not just a matter of giving people a kind of adequate wage, which you might be able to do by taxing robots. I'm not sure this is going to happen, but I can conceive of economically solving the problem, but I'm not sure you solve the larger question about how people get meaning in their lives if they're not working, because we're so tied up with work. And you can either be a pessimist and think everyone's going to end up sitting around smoking marijuana and watching television, or you can believe it. This now becomes the first opportunity to take seriously the humanities and the arts. And now people would have the time, and they wouldn't have to worry about making money because they can't work anyway, so they're being paid. And it could be it could revolutionize what society looks like. And that's kind of way out there thinking, but if you wanted to push me in that direction, that's where I would go, just in terms of the kinds of questions that we might address. As a Kantian, I'm going to say the first thing we need to think about is to think about humanity in general, not just about American society or Western society. Humanity is humanity. Now, solving the problem there is maybe different. First of all, you may not have the impact right away because a lot of those jobs that are going on over there, the transition may be slower. One of the advantages that this so-called disadvantaged world has had is it's able to jump hurdles that we had to go through in the industrial side. So, for example, with cell phones, they skipped the whole intermediary phase. But the very first thing is we have to stop thinking of people in Africa and parts of Asia as the other. We have to think of them as human beings. In the beginning, business ethics was focused at the individual level pretty much, whistleblowing and questions like that. And then we began to take seriously the organization as a whole. And then partly, I think, under the thinking of European business ethicists as opposed to American business ethicists, we began to think seriously about macroeconomic issues or political institutions. In terms of the future, the first thing is the ethical issues will be there. They haven't disappeared, and they won't disappear. And one of the impediments to the field is really the cynicism about business ethics, which has been out there at a very strong level all through my experience in teaching and writing about business ethics. And we're probably more cynical now than we were before. So they're going to have to work on that. First thing we need to do is to realize that business ethics has to be an interdisciplinary experience and a research agenda. What that means is there's no one approach that will encompass the entire field. And it's pretty easy to know what the empirical people, because we've seen it with behavioral economics, what they're up to. And it's very important research. It's changed my thinking about how you teach business ethics, actually. And then there's what I call rich narrative case studies, which there are some. And actually, the business ethics people have contributed perhaps more to this field than most people have, because qualitative research, even though it's empirical, because it's studying actual institutions, is still looked upon, well, it's not mathematical and it doesn't have a model, but they have very rich stories to tell. What do the philosophers add? The philosophers provide a theory of justification. That's what normative ethical theory does. So if you discover empirically that people are more likely to return a wallet if they have a blue dress on, okay, what does that tell us? And what if we find that people in purple dresses are less likely to do it? Well, do we just accept that? Or we try to find out why in the devil do people in purple dresses not return the wallets? And how do we change that behavior? And it's only if you come at it from some kind of ethical framework that you can say, okay, here are the reasons. Once I understand why people in purple dresses don't return the wallet, here are the reasons you can give for that behavior to change. And we do this all the time. Think about how our attitude to animal rights has changed in our lifetime. And so the notion that you can't use good art and good narratives and normative theory to change people's mind is just false. It's finding a place for the philosophers that can be respected. And the philosophers shouldn't be so arrogant as to think that the whole story in business ethics is the philosophical story. It's truly an interdisciplinary subject.